Welcome to MSUA's Game Changers Live, where we speak with satellite and mobile connectivity thought leaders about industry trends, new technologies, and share what you need to know about where satellite technology is headed in the future. I'm your host, Lisa Dreer. Our guest today is Andy Smith. He's the Group Technical Director at AST Group. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here and be part of it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for making time for this. So maybe you can start by just giving us a little bit of background on AST Group and yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Andy Smith. I'm the Group Technical Director at AST. Been with the organisation and in SATCOMs for over 12 years now. Prior to AST, I had a background in IP data services. AST is an independent satellite provider. We have offices in the Americas, Europe, Asia, and Australia, and we've been going for approximately 30 years. We're specialists in providing expertise, services, and solutions in the land and maritime spaces. And we also develop our own in-house set of services centered around allowing our customers to better manage their data services and track and monitor their assets.
Wow, that's amazing. So MSUA will be 30 years old next year as well. So we have some longtime folks in the industry here today.
Birthday party.
Yeah, absolutely. So we invited you here today to talk a little bit about, where satellite technology is headed, especially with respect to mobile applications and that sort of thing. So maybe we can start by just having you talk a little bit about what you feel is the most important role that the satellite industry is playing in the future of mobile connectivity today.
Okay, well, I mean, currently satellite, of course, already plays a hugely important role, providing voice or data services to lone or remote workers in the remotest parts of the planet, providing everything from data comms, voice comms, as I said, to tracking and asset management and monitoring. Further applications of that, of course, cellular backhaul, ice flow monitoring, ozone layer monitoring, aircraft tracking. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, right, which we kind of all know. Undoubtedly, I think the largest role is and is going to continue to be providing connectivity to all. That is that internet connectivity in the remotest parts of the planet that actually we all take for granted because we all have it, but actually still probably 47% of the planet do not have access to today. I think also the environmental agenda is going to drive what happens there as well, because SATCOMs is going to continue to unlock new services and a growth there through tracking, through the evolution of the current satellites, but also with the growth of the new satellites such as small sats and CubeSats, etc. Then we could talk about convergence with the new 5G standards and continuing evolutions of those, where satellite is going to be an integrated part, not just a bolt-on as perhaps we see today, where we truly see ubiquitous and seamless connectivity being able to be provided by operators and hopefully then available to the customers to ingest. And then there is also some responsibility and sustainability aspects to this as well, I think, where in the next few years we are, of course, going to see thousands, if not tens of thousands of satellites of all shapes and sizes going to be launched. And I think there's an onus on the operators to work together and with the governments to mitigate some of the risks that are going to be presented by that, particularly the risks space debris poses, because what we all want, of course, is for space to continue to be viable, safe, and to continue to provide services that enhance our way of life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing, right? How much satellite plays a role in our daily lives. And, I think it's to the point where it's so seamless that we don't even really realize it, right?
We're just used to it. I mean, what's truly amazing, I think, is that SATCOMs, we're so used to it just working. And yet the engineering that's gone into that to get things just to work is actually phenomenal. And yet it continues to evolve. So where that goes, I think where it goes is that pure seamless connectivity. But we'll talk more about that as we go forwards.
Absolutely. So when you think about the changes that are coming down the pike for the satellite industry, what do you think will be the most significant changes over the next, I don't know, 12 or 24 months?
Well, I think for me, it's the new constellations are one of the largest changes we're going to see, particularly from the new entrants. But of course, also there's existing players there who are going to launch new constellations as well. But the volume of these, I think, is truly remarkable, both in terms of the numbers and the speed at which they're actually coming to the market. The new bandwidths that are going to come to the market, and the services where we're going to see low latency, wire or Ethernet type capabilities are going to be truly revolutionary, I think, ultimately leading to benefits to the customer centered around choice, flexibility, and new possibilities because of this. These new set of services. It's also going to enable, I think, more services around the shore or HQ to the satellite side, because a lot of these new services are going to be very much more akin to the terrestrial database services we see today. So I think that's going to unlock some new opportunities as well. It's of course going to be led by the LEO operators, who tend to be making the headlines at the moment. But of course, the GEO operators are going to have something to say about that. We mustn't forget about those guys, right? Because they're also going to bring new services to the market, such as the high throughput satellites. But of course, that argument of GEO versus LEO is raging, will continue to rage, and I don't really want to get into that argument today. There will, of course, be pros and cons. But the key thing is this competition in the market, which will be greater than probably we've ever experienced before. It's going to generate that competition, which is going to generate choice. And that for the end user and end customer has to be a truly positive thing, because there should be, we hope, more choice than ever before. And a company such as AST, we're network agnostic. So what we look to do, of course, is find the best solution for our customers centered around choice, flexibility, and dependability. So as an example, you may know, and the listeners, viewers may know, that AST has recently signed an agreement with the OneWeb company, who've been getting an awful lot of press. And these guys are one of the new LEO operators. And from our point of view, we think that demonstrates our desire and drive to stay at the forefront of the industry, to be able to provide the best services to our customers, not just centered around the services that are available today and their needs today, but also the next generation of services coming to the market. And we try and make sure we stay on the ahead of that curve. And that's an example of how we're trying to do it. All of this innovation is, of course, going to drive more innovation elsewhere. An example of this will be the user terminals, we think. As we know, these continue to evolve, but as time goes by, I expect to see many more functions and capabilities being embedded in these terminals. And a great example of this is we're already seeing software-defined WAN technology being embedded in some of the terminals that are on the market today, and I expect that to only increase. On the terrestrial side, we have edge computing, which is now fairly commonplace, where that edge now does some analysis and decision making. And I expect to see satellite just become another edge as we move forward. Maybe not quite in the next 24 months, but that said, there are trials going on today where AI technology is embedded within satellite to allow the satellite to make decision about whether data should be transferred back to the Earth. So I think that's a good example of where this is going to go.
Yeah. Wow. So many exciting things happening. So I think that actually leads us into thinking about the user experience, right? And maybe not only from a consumer user perspective, but also from an enterprise user or government user that are using mobile satellite services to maybe for IoT applications, or like you said, AI applications, all of these types of things that they're doing out in the field and maybe in remote areas. what are some of the criteria that these users really need to be considering when they're looking at services and solutions that they'll use to accomplish their goals?
Well, I think the first thing, and it whilst sounds obvious, is the customer truly needs to understand their own needs. And while it does, as I already said, it does sound very obvious, but often the customer hasn't really given as much thought as you would perhaps think. So understanding their own needs, what is business critical to their operations? What is going to add value to their operations? And then trying to think outside the box in terms of what would they do if they could? Because this is where extra value, of course, can be added. And these things aren't always typically bound or centered around connectivity, but often the connectivity drives them. And I think the new services coming to market are going to unlock much more opportunity there. I think the second thing is the data services become, so much more ubiquitous is, of course, cybersecurity. I don't think anyone could do a webinar today without mentioning that word. And though I'm loath to do so, it is actually, of course, a critical component when an end user is looking for a provider with which they want to do business. The main reasons behind this are, of course, every network tends to be internetworked now. So while we may think of a customer may think they're just having a data service for a remote location or a vessel, actually often it is providing a critical service because they're using SATCOMs because they can't get other services. So that service is providing almost certainly a critical function and is often a multi-user type environment as well. And then it can also be linked to operational technology systems and possibly even headquarter data networks as well, meaning that if there were to be a compromise, the ramifications and implications go way, way wider than just that unfortunate device that gets compromised. So a customer or an end user needs to be looking for that provider that takes cyber, of course, very, very seriously and has embedded within their own network preventative cybersecurity measures to ensure that their data and therefore their service is getting protected in an effective manner by their service provider. They need a provider that can, if need be, give them some advice on cybersecurity, because particularly in the maritime space, it's been incorporated now into the safety management systems that a vessel needs to have in order to sail. So way, way more important than it ever, well, not more important than it ever was, but actually it can really stop business operations now because it may not be allowed to sail, right? And then lastly, that organization needs to have cyber or infosec embedded in their business as usual processes as an organization. So maybe even looking for some sort of a certification or accreditation from that service provider to ensure that they know that that provider is really what we could call a trusted provider. Then and only then really can the customer work with that provider to design and deliver the right solution. The world we live in now of SATCOMs, of course, grows more complex with every month, let alone every year. And not all services are created equal in terms of bandwidth, availability, minimum data rates, maximum data rates, coverage. The list goes on and on and on. So what the customer, we feel, and I would say this, of course, at AST, is they need to be working with a trusted provider to help them navigate through that space. And that's exactly what AST does. We are, as I've said already, we're network agnostic. We partner with various network operators. And what we can help the customer do is work with them to deliver a solution that's absolutely right for their requirements with no bias, because we can offer a wide portfolio of services. And then next, the value-added services that service provider offers. Really, really critical to that end user because they're going to make a great difference. An example of that would be AST's Integra Control product. The Integra Control product allows on data services the customer, it gives them visibility and intelligence of their bandwidth and usage, IP data flow, down to the application level, even if the application's encrypted, so they can see exactly what applications are using their bandwidth and data. And once they've got the visibility, that of course gives them the intelligence. The platform also then gives them the ability to control that traffic, either by just clicking buttons to block applications or block categories, or maybe even the entire service, but it also provides functionality such as bandwidth throttling and alerting emails, which can all be set on usage thresholds as well. So really empowering that user to manage their own bandwidth and data services. And coupled with that, then comes the tools needed to actually not just manage the service from the data point of view, but manage their entire services. So at AST, we have customers with hundreds, if not thousands of services. So we provide those customers with tools so they can manage those services entirely themselves. So empowering our customer to do more themselves is really an ethos that we have at AST. And just another point on the value adds is, I think as we go forward and we get the new services coming, I think we're going to see more commercial models move to consumption based. That means that these tools to manage that data usage are going to remain as important as ever. More bandwidth isn't the magic bullet it's often made out to be. I've seen that in the enterprise space 15, 20 years ago, and it really doesn't stack up like that. So these management tools are going to remain as important as ever, because what they allow the customer to do is extract the most value for money out of the service that they're purchasing, where they can optimize both their bandwidth and spend, as well as being empowered to manage the services themselves. And then lastly is the support aspect. So the very nature of SATCOMs means that if a customer is using SATCOMs, any problem they have is going to be a big deal. So the challenge is they're going to be in a remote location. The service that has the problem is going to be maybe their only service or one of very few communication services they have. So it's really going to be significant. Even if it's one customer, it's a real big deal for those guys. So they need to be looking for a provider that really is customer-centric in their support model, and really focusing on that provider having a structured methodology around support centered around resolution and satisfaction, rather than statistics and turning the handle to meet SLAs, etc. And that is a cornerstone of what we do here at AST, where our 24/7 support center is all about customer satisfaction and resolution versus statistics.
Wow. So there's so much for users to think about and to consider, and they almost need a checklist, right? To go through and make sure that they're considering all of these important aspects of their communication solutions from a SATCOM perspective. So one of the
Absolutely.
things,
I mean, it's a difficult space for them. So having that trusted provider really helps them navigate that space.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So what would you say are some of the key new technologies that users need to know about now?
Well, again, I think it's the new constellations and the services they're going to bring could be real game changers, or are going to be real game changers. And that's not just the new entrants and the LEO providers, that's the GEO providers as well. These guys are evolving constantly with new high throughput services coming online all of the time. But we also mustn't forget the L-band providers. These guys are not standing still, as we've seen in recent years. They're going to continue to evolve and develop new services. And I expect us to see new offerings from these guys in the coming years, which are also going to shake up things a little more than perhaps we might expect today. Then there's convergence, which I've already spoken about, where we are going to see terrestrial and satellite networks converge. I mean, there are tests ongoing now demonstrating exactly it. Perhaps the more difficult question is when that actual seamless connectivity is actually going to be ready for the market, because of course, to get it to the market, it has to be an affordable service that makes sense to the end user. But it is going to happen. It's just a question of when. And I think what's truly exciting is these low latency wire-like services that we're going to see, and the bandwidth they're going to deliver. If we take OneWeb as the example again, they're a LEO operator. Their latency is going to be very, very low. And the bandwidth these guys are going to deliver on some of the standard offerings is going to be in the region of 50 to 100 megabits per second, which is truly, getting them in the league of office connectivity. So that's going to unlock a huge set of new potential together with the services that they offer over the bandwidth. It's not just going to be a bandwidth play. But of course, over time, what this is going to do is it's going to drive a reduction in the cost per megabit, which of course the end customer is going to be truly, truly interested in. So the end customer should be able to achieve huge increases in bandwidth for little or no extra cost on their monthly operational expenditure. But also, the ground is not going to stand still. The ground networks are going to evolve. As I've already said, terminals, I see them turning into multi-service devices, which will unlock new capabilities as they become more versatile in what they can offer. Almost certainly they'll become edge devices as well and be able to do edge computing functions. And there's already examples of that today. And then the actual ground stations, already we're seeing evolutions there where virtualization and software-defined technologies are enabling a whole new set of virtual ground stations to appear and allow economies of scale to be really driven. And while we're probably still in the early stages of that, I can only see that growing because those economies of scale are going to equate to efficiencies and less spend for operators, right? And we can only hope that in time that those benefits get passed down the value chain to the end user, which again is going to influence that cost per megabit price. So from a user's point of view, I think the key message is they need to be thinking about tomorrow, today. So whilst, yes, they should be trying to stay abreast of these new technologies, as we've already spoken about, it's a bit of a minefield. So our advice would be to find a trusted partner, someone that's network agnostic like AST, so we can work with that customer to extract the benefit from these new services to ensure cost efficiency is delivered. Then that customer can work with that provider, because the key objective there is to get a seamless upgrade path from today's technologies and services to tomorrow's next generation services. And I think that's the key message.
Yeah, this has got to be the most exciting time in Satcom's history ever. There's so much happening in the industry. So Andy, I really want to thank you so much for being here today to share your insights about satellite mobile connectivity. I really look forward to having you on again. I would love to dig into some of these topics a little bit deeper because there's, like I said, so much changing and so many new technologies that our user community is looking to take advantage of or looking to learn more about. So hopefully we can get together again and dig into some of these topics a little bit deeper.
Absolutely, would love to. So look forward to doing it again on a specific topic.
Absolutely. Well, I also want to take a moment to thank the Mobile Satellite Users Association for hosting these sessions. To learn how to participate in a Game Changers live session, to become a member of the MSUA, or receive our weekly newsletter, be sure to visit msua.org. And we'll see you again next time on Game Changers Live. Thanks all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.